So we set out with the brief to redesign the Supernova sail from the sail that was classically with the boat. It was starting to look maybe a little bit dated. It's quite a rounded leech. There was some comments from feedback from the fleet that maybe the sail wasn't that easy to use, and maybe could make, if we changed it, make the boat a little bit more attractive to people outside the fleet, and then also make the boat a little bit easier to sail. Hopefully for, you know, the guys at the front of the fleet are going to go fast no matter what. The guys in the middle of the fleet and back of the fleet, hopefully if we're going to make them have a nicer day sailing, they'll enjoy the sailing a bit more, come sailing a bit more, sail in higher winds. When it's blowing, you'll go out and have a great time, and hopefully that's what we've achieved with what we've tried to do with the sail. So, classically the sail had a very rounded roach, and part of what happened with that sail was because the area was down here in the sail, the centre of effort ended up quite a long way back in the sail. And that classically was meaning that the breezier it was, the windier it was, the more difficult it was to tack. The more the boat wanted to head up. And you have to be very careful to keep the sail well sheeted, drop the sheet early, keep the boat flat, and do all those things to try and sail it. We redistributed the area of the sail, so we've got a new sail that's exactly the same area as the old one. We're very, very careful to keep exactly the same area. We've not added sail area, the sail's not got any bigger, the sail's also not got any smaller. It's exactly the same as it was. But we've taken the area from down here and we've stuck it there. One of the things it does is it gives us a little more area in the top of the sail. So in the lighter winds, you might find that the sail has a little bit more power, a little bit more go, because it's got a little bit more turning force. It's trying to tip the boat over a little bit more than it was. The other thing it's done is it's removed this area from down here. So it's brought the centre of effort slightly further forwards, one fraction. But what that means is the boat doesn't want to head up quite as much as it used to. It wants to sail in a straight line a little bit more balanced. And the other thing it's done is because we've got a square corner, that corner is unsupported. The only thing that is supporting that corner is the shape of the sail and the tension in the back. That's the only thing. So when the wind blows on it, we get a gust on it. What that corner wants to do is blow over and twist. Twist is good. We like twist because twist makes the sail automatic. So now the sail should do the work rather than you having to do the work. So sailing with this sail should, for the majority of people, be easier because the sail will be more automatic. Okay? Right. We've gone for a fully radial layout. Let the sail look a bit more modern. It's a bit tidier. Hopefully you think we've done a good job of it and it looks neat and tidy and really adds to the boat. I think what the laminating guys doing this in our laminating shop, they produce a fantastic boat. They're really, really light for a kick-off. They're really well made. And it's quite a racy looking boat really, isn't it? And hopefully what we've done is we've added the rig that now looks racy, as well as the hull looking racy. And, you know, the Supernova fleet might start to give the D0s and the Aeros a bit of a black eye and duff those up, and we'll get a few more Supernova sailors into the fleet, making it even bigger. 200 boat nationals next year. So Cliff was doing some fantastic chat there about how we set the sail up in bits and pieces.
Why is it big tell?
Right, Rooney, telltales. We just added 2 telltales as I think you certainly need this bottom one to check to check where you are, you're sheeting, you generally are going to look in this area here, where you're sheeting. If you guys want to add telltales all over the sail, crack on. I think did we bring some down, Sam? We brought some down, so if people want to grab, we've got a few spares, so if people want to grab some spare. I think I've seen a couple of sails today with green and red telltales on, and people doing different things. So I think that's a personal choice. But we've obviously given you a start in it. I'd be looking at this one. I wouldn't necessarily be looking at that one, I'd be looking at this one. All the time when I'm sailing. To see whether I've sheeted correctly and whether I've steered. And obviously, leech telltales. Although we should find, once there is enough breeze to sit out, generally the leech telltales stream all the time anyway. We'd really struggle to make them stall. So we're talking, Cliff was obviously talking really well about boat setup and how you sail the boat and bits and pieces. There's a couple of things that we can talk about with control settings, especially on this newer sail. That you should find as you go sailing, you should find that you maybe want to keep this in mind as you start to use your controls to modify sail shape. Okay? Because obviously we've got some fundamental controls here. Mark can talk a little bit more about how he sets his boat up when he sails, rake, and pieces like that. And I think he's been using the standard tuning guide. So that tuning guide hasn't really changed from the old sail to the new sail. Maybe as you do more and more sailing, that it'll get refined a little bit, it'll change a little bit. But at the moment, the standard tuning guide is pretty good ballpark, great place to set. So obviously the first thing we do when we're in light winds, we're going to start with no kicker, aren't we? Anybody start with kicker? No kicker, no cunning is where we're going to start. Really light winds.
And the lowers?
I think Mark sets 50 mil of slack, or just time.
In light winds?
Yeah.
Just to help slightly. In light winds, if you've got adjustable lowers,
Yeah.
and I'm not sat on the side, I'm not starting to hike, I actually pretty much let my lowers go. Because I want to promote a little bit of mass bend, and I want to flatten the sail and give less drag in the wind. So if those of you with adjustable lowers, you can let them off. If you've not got adjustable lowers and you've got fixed lowers, I would suggest they want to be fairly slack in that wind condition. If you're in a wind condition where you're just sat on the side, not hiking out, or slightly sat in, they want to be fairly slack.
And maybe the question there is, what are the lowers doing? What do the lowers do for you? Stiffen the bottom of the mast. So we're changing the bend characteristic in this section of the mast, in the lower section of the mast. It does slightly change the bend characteristic in the top of the mast as well. Because if we put pressure on the sail, and we're trying to bend the mast with the sail, if we're stopping it bend here, it's got to bend somewhere. It's not bend there. If we let this go a little bit, it'll bend here. And it might not bend quite so much up there. So we might end up with a fuller sail at the top and a slightly flatter sail at the bottom. If everybody gets a chance at some point, come around and have a look at the profile of the sail from this side, you'll see it's slightly fuller, middle, lower, generally, than it is in the top. So generally, if we keep it flatter here, when it's light, we might be able to point a little higher. If we've got a flatter entry here, ease the lowers, let the mast bend at the bottom, have a slightly flatter entry, and be able to pinch slightly, be able to point slightly, and have a little bit more fullness in the top, power at the top, trying to create that power and generate some turning force, sit out earlier. Yeah? So you start with the lowers, reasonably slack. That being said, lowers on any rig, and I know there's ex-British boss sailor fleet who they love the lowers, really whippy masts. The lowers, because they are only offset from the base, from the shroud base, by a small distance, to have any real function, any real solid function or upwind, once you start to pile the kicker on, they need to be really tight. Because we've got boom thrust pushing against a very shallow angle. And the lowers really only become really functional when the boom's out. Because then the kicker is pulling at opposition to the lower on the other side and stopping the mast going sideways. Okay. So we've started our low wind setting with no kicker and no cunning. And we can close the leech a little bit with our main sheet. We don't want to close the leech too much. We don't want to oversheet too much. Generally, I think we're inside the tank on the corner.
Inside edge of the tank.
Just on the inside of the tank, the sheeting. Somewhere there, not too much sheet. A little bit more breeze, we can add a little bit of sheet tension. The boom's going to get blown off the centre line. The sail's going to want to open. Just got a little bit more pressure in the sail. It's going to get blown off, a little bit more sheet tension. Try and close the leech. And we'll get a different sail shape from sheet tension. Look at the leech as I see it hooks. We're closing the leech and hooking it. Yeah? Remember that corner's unsupported. It's going to get blown open. The wind's going to blow it open. Okay? So we can try and close the leech. Not too much. We don't want to stall the sail out. We don't want to stop the boat. But we can close the leech tight. Once we get past there, we have to ease the sheet to try and keep the boat flat. As soon as I ease the sheet, leech opens. So I'm wasting that power. I'm not overpowered yet, I'm wasting that power. So let's have some kicker on. We close that leech. We close it. Lovely. A bit more wind. Leech is getting blown up even more. Close the leech. Okay? Now we're starting to get to a point where we're going to start to go past the luff round of the sail. What I mean by luff round is there's two ways to build shape into a sail. Broad seam, which is the shape that's built into the seams of the sail. Every seam is curved, very slightly. And the luff round of the sail, which is the edge curve of the luff. Those are the two ways we build shape. Once we get past the mast bend matching the luff curve, we get into a mode where we start to starve the sail. And we start to over-flatten the sail. Okay? So we've sucked the shape out of here. We've sucked it all out. And it's going to start to overbend. So I can start to show you that. So you see this, the creases start to come off the luff. The luff starts to change shape. See, it's getting flatter. And flatter. And flatter. Okay? And it's getting flatter, and the draft has moved from the front of the sail to here. But that might not be a good thing. Because if we've got a very round shape in the back part of the sail, we've added drag to this part of the sail. But we want the air to travel off it and disappear. Then we can start to use some cunning. The sail shape starts to change. Again, adding some cunning. And it gets rounder at the front. And rounder at the front. And the draft comes forwards again. And this part gets straight. And the draft comes forward. So as we go through the wind range, we add kicker to close the leech. Add kicker to close the leech. And at some point, we've added too much kicker to keep the draft in the correct place. And what I mean by draft is the maximum point of depth in the sail. Where the sail is full, where the sail is round. Okay? And we're trying to keep it 30%, 40%, something like that. Forward of the middle. Forward of the middle. Okay? As we go through the wind ridge, and the sail, all this time as we've been sailing, it's been getting windier and windier and windier. That corner is still blowing open. We can't say it. If we went and stood the boat outside, you'd say it, because it's windy. That corner's blowing open. Okay, so all those telltales will be streaming like billion. And we're never going to get to a point, unlike a rounded leech sail, where you might get to a point where you start to stall those telltales. And that's your key, where you go, oh, I've got too much kicker on because I've stalled the telltales. I'll stop pulling the kicker. We're not going to manage to get that. We're not going to manage to get those telltales to stall. You might get that one to stall. You might get the bottom one to stall. Top three, they're going to stream. They're going to stream. So what's going to be, we need to work out our trigger for stopping pulling the kicker. Okay? And if you're hanging on by your toenails, and your boom's out over there, because you can't keep the boat flat, and this part of the sail's turned inside out, you've probably got too much power. So if we've got too much power, the sail is too engaged. We've got too much of it. So we can start to pin on, and hopefully you'll see it here. I'll just go a little bit more kicker, right? And then if I start to pin on this tuning, and if everybody watches the top of the mast, very top bit, above the house, okay? So you see the top starts to go, and it goes a bit more, and it goes a bit more. And those top two battens, the top one's nearly straight. And with a bit of pressure in it, it would be straight. With a bit of wind in it, it would be straight. And what we're looking for, once it gets windy, once it gets past the point where you can't keep the boom in anymore, and you're feeling like, craggy, this is really hard. We should be able to get those two top battens to go dead straight. Okay? We should be getting them to go dead straight. And that area of the sail should stop working. It should effectively just, the wind should hit it, go straight off the edge of it. And it shouldn't be creating really any drive at all. And we should be keeping all the drive in this section of the sail down here. This is the only section of the sail that should be rounded and full. And this bit is close to the deck. It's not very high up. So it's not tipping the boat over. So we should be more able to keep the boat flat, keep the boat driving forward. And that's it.
That last one, sorry, I think the other was, the last thing you did was quite cutting in one half.
Cutting, more cutting. If it gets to a point where it's windy, so windy that it is like you're struggling to do anything, the thing you can do is back the kicker off. Watch the top. Everybody watch the top. Kicker on. Right, leech engage. Kicker off. It's open. So we're talking about twist. How much twist the sail is allowed to have. More kicker is less twist. Less kicker is more twist. So if that bit's twisting and going that way, this bit, and it's depowered, this bit can come in. And we can sail with this bit further. Make sense? So as you start to use the sail more and more and more, we should find, we'd hope we'd find, that it's more usable and it's easier to control because we can push it into more shapes and bleed off the power more effectively and make it a lot easier to sell. I think the only other thing I'd say is Cliff made some really good comments about sailing downwind. And obviously Sea Cockerel's videos were an absolute go-to for how to sail a single-handed downwind and how to sail it in what he would describe as the fourth mode, where it's kited by the lake and arguably slightly unstable. And do lots and lots of practice. Get uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable. A couple of things to add. Jibe, just one of the things I would add was jibe when it's scary. If it's scary and it's going really fast, it's unloading. So you should be able to feel, as Cliff was saying, oh, there's no pressure in there because it's going down. You're going down a wave. Pick up a wave, go really fast down the wave. Oh, you're going really fast. So if you're going really fast, the rig should be unloaded. So you should be able to jibe. And you should be able to feel that, as Cliff says, through the main sheet. Oh, main sheet's gone really light. There's a good time to jibe. If you go into up the wave, and you go, ooh, that's loaded. Back it off. Yeah? So go really fast. But the other thing to mention is, as you sail downwind, generally, when everybody goes downwind, they go around the world a lot. You binny cutting them. You might even let a little bit out fall off, make it even fuller on the bottom. And that's a change we've made with this sail, because we used to have a tack slug on the sail here. We've got a tack tie now. And that makes the outhaul react in a slightly different way. Because now, as the boom goes out, it makes these offset goosenecks and the plain gooseneck as well. If you've got a slightly older boat with a plain gooseneck, it makes the gooseneck even more effective. Because as you let the boom out, the distance between here and the end of the boom and here and the end of the boom is greater. The further the boom is out, the more eased the outboard. The further the boom is in, the tighter it is. We've got, what, about a handspan? Just go around it. Ooh, and a bit more. Okay? And that's because of the offset here. That's the difference. So, the further the boom is out, the more eased it is. Be careful as you go around a leeward mark and you're thinking about the beat. Oh, I need to put controls back on. Let's pull controls back on. Don't go around the leeward mark and go, oh, I come out of that looks about right. Oh, maybe a little bit more. Yeah. Yeah, oh, yeah, it still looks a bit baggy. Let's pull a bit more. Yeah? You might find that as you sail around the course, you set your outhaul on the first beat. For the wind strength, and leave it out. And never touch it. Because just the act of letting the boom out gives that extra shape, extra fullness, extra power to reach. Baggy bag on the road. You might find, and some people, this is an alternative way to think about the sail shape on a run. Instead of turning it into a bag, stretch it out. Maximum area. Get it as far out as you can. Stretch it out. But then remember, when you get to the leeward mark, back to where you are. So this is where maybe a little calibration mark on your string here. Might be nice, a little calibration mark on your mast where you pull your outboard to, so you know where you're going back to every time. The other thing to mention about dumping all the controls when you go downwind is the other thing that can make you capsize catastrophically to windward is twist. We've talked about twist going upwind, what about twist going downwind? If our boom's out to the corner here, we've got an unsupported corner there, and it happens in the old sail as well. It happens with lasers, all bits and pieces. If we've got no kicker on, and the boom is allowed to rise, that corner is even more unsupported. So instead of the driving force being uniform across the sail, and all the flow being the same direction, all of a sudden the flow can change direction in the top part, because all of a sudden the top part, instead of being the same as the bottom part, the top part can drive this way. So if the flow is then running fast across the sail, luff to leech, that way, it'll drive the mast that way, and it'll be the top part that does it. And it will drive the mast hard to windward. And that's where you get really unstable. Bring some kicker on. Control that going. Stop it going. Keep all the flow going the same way across the sail. And you'll find it more stable. You'll find it easier. It's not quite as fast. Fast is on the limit. Fast is that real fourth dimension where you've got it balanced unadjusted. That's really fast. But if you're finding that the boat's rolling hard and you're having to work hard to keep it upright, or down a little, get more kicker on, control that leech, steer up a little, don't sail so low, just to keep it under control a little bit. And then you should find that it's easy. You should find it's much more comfortable to sail it in that mode. The really quick guys will sail it on the limit. They'll sail really low with as much twist as they can get away with. And it's little board. But then it's just practice. Practice, practice, practice. So find the limit. Find the limit. Work out where the limit is. And get comfortable with where the limit is. Any questions?
Okay, just one.
Oh yeah.
Regarding the control as the wind gets stronger, I've been led to believe on these sails that Cunningham's coming on the first and not much kicking. Are you suggesting that use your kick and bring your Cunningham on as the wind strengthens?
I think you want to bring your kicker on just to start with.
Yeah.
And then just slowly, gradually bring your Cunningham on with it.
Yeah.
So a handful of kicker, have a look at yourself. And it's the Cunningham, when you start to bring your kicker on, the Cunningham is bringing the draft forward. That's the first thing it does. It brings the draft, before you get into real tension with it, before you get into a lot of Cunningham, you're bringing the draft forward. So you want to just keep that, and what you need to be looking at is you need to be looking at where the roundness is in the bottom batten and the next batten. So I'll pull some kicker on and have a look at yourself. I think I used to sail Ospreys. Not the real great guys. And one of the guys, Paul Jameson, was crewing, and he would always get the end of the genoa sheet and whack his helm with the end of the genoa sheet, because he'd just get his head in the boat and he'd pull kicker on like that. Look at the sail as you pull the kicker on. Because he'd no idea how much kicker he pulled on, he hadn't got. So pull the control on, and then, have a look at it. Oh, yeah. So if you pull the kicker on, and the draft has gone aft in the sail, and you've not touched the Cunningham, you might have just added a load of drag here. The draft might be a long way aft. So we're looking to pull the Cunningham, get the draft to 40% again, something like that. Yeah, forwards of the middle. Okay, smooth out those creases that we're starting to create by pulling the kicker, by over-bending fast. Smooth them out. You don't have to pull loads, but just smooth them out. And then once you get past the point where you're overpowered all the time, and you pull the kicker, pull the Cunningham. Really pull it, because it dramatically changes the top part of the sail. And that's what we're trying to use it to do after that point. We're trying to dramatically change the shape in the top of the sail and get the unsupported part of the mast to bend. If we can bend it, we can remove the luff round on that part of the sail. And we can get those battens to go straight and depower. A flat sail is a non-drag sail. We remove the drag. And once it gets to past a point where you're trying to induce power and you're trying to get rid of power, getting rid of drag is good. Okay?
And then last thing is off the kicker.
And then the last thing is kicker. If you go out tomorrow and it's reasonably breezy, sail upwind with some kicker on, with some Cunningham on, drop some kicker and see what happens. And you'll see an instant drop in power. An instant drop in power. And you'll just, oh, I'm going to power. Oh, I'll put it back on. Oh, it's more power. You'll just see it happen. It will just happen. Question about batten tensions. When we set the sails up in the sail loft, we've wanged on a little bit of batten. Just thumb tight, we're not really wanging it up. These Allen batten adjusters, you can really get into them. They've got little holes in the thumb screw at the end. And if you really want to wind them up, you can really wind them up. More batten tension will make the batten slightly fuller. We're not going to add a dramatic amount of shape to it, but we'll make the sail slightly fuller because we're stretching the sailcloth against the batten. The batten's reasonably rigid, so we're stretching the sailcloth with more batten tension. If we want power, if we think we want power in return, more batten tension would do it. The thing it will do in detriment, in the other way, the batten will be more difficult to flick from one tack to the other. So if we wang loads of batten tension on and it goes light, and we go for a little tack, we might not pop all the battens, they might not pop through. We might have to waft the sail, we might have to jump on the side, we might have to, do great big roll tacks and roll jibes to try and pop those battens and get them to flick through. So batten tension has a function. It might not necessarily be the fastest thing. It might be creating slightly more power. You might be looking for more power. An instance where batten tension isn't your friend. I sell 200 the other week. Got my little girl out, went for a sail on the 200. Top batten wouldn't pop at all. And I was chatting to some guys after, and they were saying they had to set the batten tension up with 0 tension. Literally not pull it at all, just put it in and tie a knot at the end of the batten adjuster. And that's it, because if you had any batten tension in at all, sub 10 knots, you couldn't flick the battens. It wouldn't flick. You had to bat the sail about 5, 6, 7 times and pull Cunningham on at the same time to try and get the batten to flick. And that was not fast. So I think the further we go with the sails, the more the sail gets used, it'll settle down. What we're not looking for is vertical creases. So if the sail has vertical creases across the battens, running straight down the sail, or if the pocket looks especially creased, then the batten's probably got slightly loose. And after you've used the sail about 5 or 6 times, you might want to just run down it and just check, because the sail will settle in slightly. The sail will settle slightly, everything will move very slightly, and it will settle down. So just have a look at it after you sail 5 or 6 times, and then after you sail 3 months. Just have a little check. Okay? Any other questions?
You haven't mentioned the mastery tool.
I think Mark's on mastery.
Oh,
He knows more about mastery than I do. All right?
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.